Spoilers ahead. Watch out, and take care. The movie starts with a gorilla named Ivan, who lives at the Big Top Mall and Video Arcade, where he performs different acts with others, including Henrietta, a baseball player chicken, Frankie the seal, Murphy, a rabbit who drives a toy fire truck, Estella the elephant, Snickers the poodle, and a stray dog Bob, who is always found in Ivan's cage. All these animals are quite close to a little girl Julia, who often visits them with her father George, an employee at the mall. Julia is always busy with her drawings, and is loved by all, including the circus owner, Mac. As the circus is currently going through a crisis, and is unable to draw people, the situation is a bit worrying for Mac, who is always in search of an idea to make things better. As he shares his concern with Ivan, he and Estella remember the times when their shows were all sold out, and they even had to perform multiple times a day. One day, as Julia gets new crayons, she gifts the older ones to Ivan, who uses them to draw a beetle. Later, Julia spots his drawing, and surprisingly, she is the only one who understands what he wants to convey. One day, Mac buys a baby elephant named Ruby, from a bankrupt circus in New Jersey, in hopes to get some visitors to see her, and hands her over to Estella. Ivan is not quite happy with this new addition, especially because Ruby bothers him a lot, with questions about his personal life. The next day, Mac announces Ruby as the new headliner of the show, but Ivan is once again upset seeing her as the center of attention, as it was always his place. Ruby is introduced in the next show, and receives a lot of appreciation from the audience. When Julia comes over to congratulate Ruby in her enclosure, she feels that something's wrong with Estella's foot, and calls George and Mac to look after her. After examining her foot, Mac comforts Estella, and assures her that he will soon get her treated. At night, upon Ruby's request, Estella tells her a story, about times when she used to live in the wild. One day, she fell into a hole, but a little girl like Julia called her friends to get her out. Bob, who is also listening to her story, does not believe humans can be so nice, but Estella insists there are many people, who are blessed with golden hearts, and are capable of surprising them with their kind gestures. After hearing the story, Ruby asks her if they will ever be able to live in the wild again, but Estella has no answer to her question. The next day, as Estella is not yet able to perform, Mac urges Ruby for a solo performance, but she is too afraid to go out alone. Seeing her scared, Ivan encourages her to go there and just be herself, which she reluctantly does, and gets a lot of applause from the audience. At night, seeing Ruby struggling to sleep, Ivan distracts her, by drawing her a picture of a carrot. To stop her from bothering sick Estella, Ivan also tells Ruby a story, about how Mac and his wife Helena, adopted him when he was a baby. They treated him like their own child, and took him with them, everywhere they went. At that time, Mac owned a photo booth at the mall, where Ivan used to pose for pictures with the kids. With time, as he started growing older, he often created a lot of mess at their house. Although Mac was tolerant of him, Helena got frustrated, and left them forever. Later, Mac brought him here at the mall, and he has been living alone in his enclosure ever since. When Ruby falls asleep after the story ends, Estella, who is aware of her deteriorating health, asks Ivan to promise her that he will look after Ruby, and will try his best to give her a free life. Ivan assures her to take care of Ruby, and Estella dies of her illness the same night. Everyone at the camp is distressed over Estella's sad demise, but Max still puts himself together, and comforts Ruby, because he wants her for the next act. Ivan thinks about how he will fulfill his promise to Estella, but Bob has full confidence in him, that he will figure things out soon. The next morning, as Mac begins Ruby's training, it upsets Ivan, as he thinks now Ruby might have to spend her entire life in a cage, just as Estella. When Mac is not ready to give Ruby a break, Ivan thinks he should do something for her. He draws a key on a paper, while telling Bob, that they need to give this message to Julia, so she can release them from their enclosures. When Ruby wakes up, Ivan tells her a story about a baby elephant, who was detained in a small chamber, but her friends let her out, to live a free life in the forest, just as he is planning to do for her. When Julia comes over the next morning, Ivan presents her his drawings, which she shows to Mac. Seeing this, Mac comes up with an idea, to create an act with the tagline, "A gorilla who draws." The idea clicks, and Ivan is the headliner again, because now he is, the one and only Ivan, the artistic ape. After the successful marketing, Mac calls Ivan on stage, to draw something in front of the audience, but he refuses to comply. Mac distracts the audience with another act, but later scolds Ivan for messing up the show. While talking to him, he spots Bob in his cage, and loses his temper, as he never likes his staying there. When Mac asks the security guard Costello to get him out, Ivan thinks of a plan to use him for their purpose. He asks Bob to lower Costello into the cell, and steal the keys after scaring him off. They come over to get Ruby out, who requests to free all others as well, but Snickers refuses to leave, as he believes he cannot survive in the wild. When the group escapes out of the mall, Costello calls Mac to inform him about the incident. Meanwhile, the animals cross the road, to get into the forest which Ivan told them about. Everyone is excited to be free, but their happiness is only short-lived, as what they thought as a forest, is just an interaction with a bunch of trees, and they are surrounded by the city from all sides. Soon, Mac comes over looking for them, and convinces them to go back to the mall with him. Later, when George comes over after hearing about the escape, Mac tells him that he has fired Costello over his irresponsible behavior. Mac also requests him to keep it a secret, as he does not want to compromise the reputation of his circus. As everyone is back in their cages, Ruby asks Ivan to tell her a story about the wild. Although he does not want to remember it, he gives in when she insists, and shares with her about the times when he was a baby gorilla called Mud, who used to live in a forest with his family. He loved to spend his time drawing and playing tag with his sister, who he named after the game. One day, when poachers came over, and everyone ran for their lives, his father saved him, but got shot by them. In this incident, Ivan also got separated from his sister and the rest of the group, and never saw them again. After sharing his story, Ivan tells them that he often thinks that if he had learned to fight, instead of spending his time drawing, maybe his life would be different. Moved by his story, Bob says humans are always like that, but Ruby disagrees, as Estella told her to believe in their kindness. When all of them are back to their usual circus life, Julia comes over to Ivan, and gives him some of her old finger paints. She also reveals that she heard about the previous night, and knows that he does not want to be here anymore. While talking to him, she also shows her a drawing of her sick mom, and tells him that she draws things like she wants them to be, and hopes that maybe someday her drawings will come true. When she leaves, Ivan remembers his childhood passion, and starts painting with her colors. The next morning, Mac comes over to the mall for another show, but is questioned by a reporter, Candace Taylor, about last night's escape, as many people witness seeing the animals on the highway. As Mac does not want to reveal anything to her, he assures Candace that it's all just a story, and invites her to watch the next show. Mac then asks George and Julia, who are helping them with the lights, to be careful about the reporter, but they assure him that everything will be under control, and they won't leak out any information. During the show, when Mac announces Ivan's act, everyone is stunned to see that he drew a wonderful mural of a lake, in the middle of trees and lush green grass. The audience admires his drawing skills, but Julia can see Ivan's real intentions, that he wants to be in a place like this, instead of a cage. Realizing this, she rushes to George, and asks him to let her go talk to Candace about him, as she believes she can help in getting Ivan free. Although he is reluctant to do this, as he might lose his job, Julia convinces him by saying they should always do the right thing, and explains the situation to Candace. Her plan works, as the next day, there is a huge crowd outside the mall, demanding the release of detained animals. Julia and George, who just arrived, realize that their efforts did not go in vain. After hearing the noise, Ivan tells Ruby that humans are protesting for them, and want them to be free. He finally learns that Estella was right about humans' affectionate nature. Before saying goodbye to Ivan, Ruby tells him she will share stories about him and Estella with her new friends out in the wild. As the animals are being taken away, Mac sadly watches them and tells Snickers it will just be them from now on. In their final moments together, Bob tells Ivan that he will always miss him, as he was used to sleeping right next to him, but assures him that he will figure something out for himself. Soon, Mac also comes over to the cage, but does not say anything to Bob this time. While talking to Ivan, Mac reminisces the times when he brought him home for the first time, and calls it the best phase of his life. After saying goodbye to Ivan, Mac walks out of the cage, but tells him that he will always miss him. Later, Ivan is also escorted out by Dr. Maya, who takes him to a big gorilla enclosure at the Zoo Atlanta. Ivan's dream is finally fulfilled, as he is now in the forest, and is reunited with his kind, just as he always wished. His happiness also adds up, as his enclosure is right next to elephants, where he can see Ruby enjoying her life with other elephants. He eventually talks to Estella's spirit, and tells her that he has fulfilled his promise. In the end, we are told the story of real Ivan, an ape born in Africa in 1962. He was brought to America, where a family adopted him. When he was big enough, they sent him to a shopping mall in Washington, where he spent 27 years, before being released to the zoo in Atlanta. The post-credits show Bob, who is now adopted by Julia, visiting Ivan with George and Mac. Seeing his new life, Julia tells him that she is happy to see his drawings come true. The end. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. Turn on the notifications and leave a like to help the channel out.